Hey guys, I thought it would be a good idea to do a short series on just going over this WPT GTO trainer and going through some of the hands in the trainer and explaining my strategy and how I would play the hands. And it's really interesting to see what the solver actually likes to do. If you know anything about me, I've always been a very big advocate of exploitative play and not really utilizing GTO at all at the lower limits, as I think it's just kind of hard to implement and people can get messed up pretty badly. And it's not really optimal for the stakes that we play in. But it's definitely super interesting now that I've kind of climbed up the stakes a little bit to go through this trainer and see what a game theory optimal strategy is. So for this episode, we're going to do just the any position open versus a big blind call GTO trainer. It's really cool. We're going to be in position this one. Next one I'll be out of position, and those will make a big difference. So I'm just going to run through probably about 10 or so hands here, and we can just talk about the situation. Alright, so we got pocket eights from under the gun, the big blind calls. This is a pretty wet board, a board that certainly is going to hit the pre-flop caller pretty hard. I think we can bet, and I think the bet sizing we want to be doing here is a little bit bigger to get his draws to pay. There's not going to be that many draws since we block 8-9 really hard, and we do have a diamond as well. So maybe I want to go a little bit on the smaller side, but I feel like if I go bigger, we don't get too punished, and just winning the hand right here is not too bad. So let's see what I would go a little bit bigger here, because I know GTO kind of likes us to go bigger on these non-ace, king, queen boards. And I think there's a decent amount of value to get from like a 7 or possibly even like some other draw, although we block the draws, so it's definitely a little bit close. Getting raised when we bet big is definitely going to be a problem, so I think ultimately maybe I do just want to bet smaller. Maybe that makes more sense. Maybe we get called by more things. I feel like any pair is going to call a bigger bet. I'm going to go for the small bet, though. Yep, that is the correct option. The GTO optimal option, at least. Now we have top pair and this kind of board. Very dry. With a hand like top pair, we usually like to bet a little bit. On a board this dry, we usually want to bet a little bit smaller, let some other things call. So I think that's what we're going to do here. If it was a little bit wetter, this is definitely an option or a hand that we can go for the bigger sizing. But I think on these types of boards, we definitely just want to bet. Usually I'd bet about half pot, but I don't even have that option. I think the smaller sizing is certainly a good option here. It might like the bigger sizing. Nope, it likes the smaller sizing every time. Cool. Pocket eights versus, on this board, this is definitely going to be a small sizing. This is a range bet, I imagine, with our entire range, and he's going to have a lot of folds. And pocket eights is actually one of the better hands we're going to have in our overall range here. It almost never likes to bet big on these ace high and king high boards. It usually just likes to bet small. Yep, 74% of the time. We get a call, check. Now I think we just want to check behind. An ace would definitely just call us here, and I definitely don't think we want to continue to play against, put money in against an ace. It's going to be a few hands we're still ahead of, a few draws we're still ahead of, but for the most part I think checking back here is going to be what the solver wants to do pretty much every time, but we'll see. Sometimes the solver just likes to go nuts. That checks 99% of the time. Our opponent bets 7 big blinds into us, and at this point I'm pretty sure our hand is beat. We block some of the draws because we have the 8 of clubs, so it's not that likely as a hand like 8-9 of clubs, but he certainly could just have an ace. He certainly could just have a hand as good as, you know, queen jack of clubs, or possibly even a 4. So I definitely think we should be folding here with a 4th pair. See what the solver likes. It likes to fold most of the time. So far it's not too bad. I usually do worse, but I'm usually pretty good at the in-position hands, but when I get out position, it gets a little bit worse. This is going to be a range bet of 2. Oh, it's checked. This play, we didn't lose any EV. Another important thing about the solver is it'll tell you if you've lost any EV, and apparently no option here was bad. It prefers the check option 54% of the time, but the bet small option is played 30% of the time about. That's the thing about game theory. They do things at different frequencies, and some of the frequencies have no difference in the EV won or lost. And I think they also do it for some balance, although it might not necessarily be true. I remember when I was first listening to Connu 7's course, that wasn't necessarily the case. But this is, our play was perfectly fine. I think now we have a pair, we just want to check. GTO does not like, inflating the pot for no reason. So I think here we just want to check back with a middle pair and hope to see a river. Bets, now I think we're going to want a value bet, probably pretty small. Not going to be too many raises, none of the draws got there. Definitely could be slow playing ace, but I think just like a half pot value bet is what I would go for here. You might want to bet a little bit bigger. Yeah, it looks like it likes the 8% play. It does go for the check raise, and GTO opponents are going to be doing this pretty frequently. Now, in this situation, I'd pretty much always fold. But I think this is like the top of our range here. Aces up. Don't really know what hands he could be bluffing here with. I think GTO usually, you'd be surprised how nitty GTO can be sometimes as well. Looks like it liked the bigger sizing, but we didn't lose that much EV, so it's not that big of a deal. Now I think I'm just going to fold. That's what I would do. I mean, not that many bluffs here. I usually would just fold here. People don't usually. But GTO definitely might want us to stick in a call. But I'm going to fold. Yep, it almost always calls. I mean, it just seems a little bit too ambitious, but, I guess it's at the top of our range. So it's pretty close. We didn't lose that much EV there. But you see, it is definitely interesting comparing my thought process to the solvers. People just don't usually bluff raise that river, and there wasn't even that many missed draws. I guess there was like the 7/8 of the world. Alright, so now that I have a pair, I don't hate checking here. I think it's going to want us to check some portion of the time. We're not super afraid of any overcard's obviously not great. Maybe we just want to bet. Just try to get a little bit of value right now. Try to fold out some of the overcards. And to do that, I think we're going to need to bet big, but that's not necessarily what we even want to do with a hand like middle pair here. So I think if we're going to bet at all, we probably just want to bet smaller. But we might want to bet big. Yep. So it does this half the time. It bets small half the time, and bets big the other half. See, you didn't really lose any EV. Now this is not a terrible opportunity to turn our hand into a bluff. He's going to lead out, and he's going to do that with a pretty wide range. So I don't necessarily know if we should be raising here, especially with the equity of having a pair. So I think just calling is good. I mean, it might raise some frequency of the time, but I definitely think the best and most frequent play is going to be just a call here. We don't really want to raise too much. We have a 3, 4, 5. So we have a gut shot to a 6 to the ass end of the straight. Not great. So I think just calling makes sense. Yep, calling is played every single time. The board pairs and we have a flush. I definitely think we need to raise with a flush here. I think our hand's going to be a little bit too good. The fact with the board pairing makes me a little bit concerned, but I don't think our opponent ever plays a set like this. He could have a flush draw, but this is kind of like block, but he could have a like 2-pair type hand, but I don't think he's usually playing a flush or a set like this. So I think we can go ahead and raise. We kind of get into some deep shit if he 3-bets us, but I think we want us to raise here. Yep, he wants us to raise every single time, essentially. We're taking the pot. Alright, so our opponent checks. We have a set. So these are the types of boards that usually likes to bet big. I don't think checking here makes much sense. This is a pretty good hand to fast play. Nope, it hated it. It wanted to check or bet small. I guess, sometimes things baffle me, but with a bunch of draws out there, a bunch of top pair type hands, 2-pair type hands, definitely think we can get I would certainly be betting big with my sets there. That does not seem like the kind of board I want to bet 1/3 pot. Here's the kind of board I want to bet 1/3 pot. Just on this king high board, we're going to get a lot of folds from a little bit worse, and there's plenty of cards that we can continue on the turn as well. It doesn't like it either. It likes to check. It's played 14% of the time. Now I have a gut shot. Now I kind of committed myself. The 4 is obviously a little bit better for his range than it is for ours, although it's a pretty negligible card. Maybe I'll just check back. I seem to like to check before. Didn't lose that much equity at least, or EV, so I think I'll just check back here. I mean, the queen is good. The fact that we got called makes... I think he's probably not going to fold to a more aggression. He might fold to like a 7. This is definitely not the spot for an overbet. I think it's either 7... Oh my god, is the spot for an overbet? What on earth? It hates checking there, taking my line. I thought overbets would be reserved more for our flush draw type hands. I didn't think that we were going to be using them for our gut shot type hands here. I was really not expecting that overbetting would be part of the range at all. I expect sometimes it could be a bigger bet, but it's overbetting every single time. Now I think we just fold to a block bet. I mean, I block king, jack, but I block some of the draws. He might even misdraws. He might even fight with here. I think we just have to fold. It might want us to raise. It wants us to raise some portion of the time, but folding a decent portion as well. These are the spots that kind of confuse me. Like this over pairs, sometimes I like using the bigger sizing, but queen high boards typically go for the smaller sizing. I think I'm going to try the smaller sizing here when it seems pretty dry. This is played 60% of the time. It likes checking. They're definitely going to call, even with some ace highs, with some ace 4s, ace 5s, even ace queens, they're probably going to call this bet. They are going to have a few aces in their range, and so are we. They're not going to be able to just fold whenever an ace comes. I think it might want us to check back here without the ace fell, but I don't necessarily think so. I think it might want us to bet fairly big and then check a lot of rivers. So I'll do that. Well, never likes that play. You see, these can be pretty tough. Now that it's checked, I definitely want to check. Yep, he has a 2-pair hand. It almost always wanted to check or to use a bit different bet sizing. This board, I kind of just need to fold. I think there is some merit to betting. I mean, with ace high, it might be the solver might be kind of content with our showdown value. So, but getting a hand like, you know, 10 jack, queen, jack, all those hands I don't hate folding out right here before they start stabbing at the pot themselves. But there's not really that many better hands that we're going to fold out by betting here. So maybe we just want to be checking. We're betting 2 and then playing a bet again on the turn. But I think checking here makes sense. Yep, so checking was played 94% of the time. Checks again. I think we were just content with our showdown value, honestly. The board pairs. We can just check back. Yep, it's completely content. And I think we just want to see a showdown. Check again. Yep. This guy decides to donk into us for big sizing. I think just calling here is fine. It might want us to raise, but I think just calling makes sense. Yep, it always wants to call. So this is getting kind of strange. He's saying to us that he has a set. Sets usually like to go for a check raise line, especially on an ace high board. But there's not that many other things. The solver's not going to have a really unbalanced range here. These are really tough opponents to play against. I think we just have to call. I don't think we can just be folding ace-king to an overbet here. So I think we're just going to continue that. It might just want us to shove at this point. Oh, it wants us to fold. Fantastic. It's actually amazing. There's not really that much we beat. It's right, but the ideal action is to fold on these boards. I thought the solvers would usually be more sticky. I was thinking fold as well, but you know, in the moment, I probably wouldn't be able to get away from this hand on the turn. He jams the, or he doesn't jam, but he bets big on the river. The 5 completes some draws, so I think ultimately now, I think we can just be laying it down here. We didn't lose that much EV with this call, and it calls some portion of the time. I'm wondering what kind of hands it chooses to call with. I mean, now I'm getting decent pot odds. Not great pot odds by any means. But if it wants us to fold there, I mean, it doesn't make much sense for us to choose this as a check fold. I mean, this does, the 5 I think completes a fair portion of the draws. I mean, it does just pair up 4-5, which I think is the one drawing hand that might do this, although mostly of the time those just check. So I think I'm going to go ahead and make a hero fold and see how the solver likes that. Yeah, the solver likes that 100% of the time. Alright, checks. I think these are the types of boards that we can bet bigger on. We also can bet small and overbet the turn. I think he usually likes to do that as well. So I'm going to do one more hand after this. So I'm going to bet small. I'm going to bet big. I'm going to bet small. You also can check. That is completely fine as well. Turn a flush draw. Now I think we want to bet big. Sometimes the solver just likes to check here, which I think is just ridiculous, but not too many hands are going to be able to call a big bet here. We do monopolize the flushes with both the ace and king of clubs. It's going to be tough for him to have some other clubs that he wants to be calling or peeling a card off with, at least for a big bet. Because of that, I think we want to be planning a way to get this hand to get a ton of a big bet on the river. So I think we still want to bet fairly big. And I think it's just going to work a lot of bluffs into our range too. Usually in position it likes doing these overbet things. Yep, and it does decide that overbetting is the best option here. Alright, last hand. This is going to be a bet small, I think. Just hoping we can get some folds. Nope, it loves to check. It loves to check, it loves to check. Alright, this will be my last hand. Same kind of concept. King, queen. Sometimes it just likes to give up these kinds of hands, but we do have a gut shot to the nuts. Because of that, I don't think we should just be checking here. I think we can bet big and try to fold out some of the under pairs now, and even some ace highs. So I think betting big makes sense. Yep, betting big is the preferred option. Alright, well, hopefully this was helpful for you guys. It's really cool to compare my thought process to the solver. I'm going to do another video next on using the solver with out of position. And you can see it's usually a bloodbath. I'll exit the session now. And that wasn't too bad. Negative 28 big blinds per 100 lost. Pretty standard. The last time I did this, I was negative 17, so I actually ended up losing a little bit, or going down a little bit, but I definitely think it was a really cool experience just to try to see my thought process versus what the solver would usually do. Although I am skewing it a little bit because I'm assuming my opponent is a very good regular, and it's obviously not the fish that I talk about so frequently. Thanks you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hope you guys have a nice day. Bye.